1973, and since the IC&SR is actively engaged in interaction with industries, research organizations, government agencies for taking up the consultancy and sponsored research projects. Since its inception, IC&SR has witnessed tremendous growth and transformation over the past 5 decades owing to the collective efforts of the previous and present deans and employees of IC&SR, and we are proud to narrate the story of our success. Now, culture is a vital part of our upbringing and who we are today as citizens and collectively as a nation on the global scale. Indian culture comprises of clothing, festivals, languages, religion, music, dance, architecture, food and art in India. I cannot find a more fitting way of celebrating our culture other than with a classical dance performance. I now invite Ms. Trishna Chandar and Ms. Sauhutya Sridharan of IC&SR to the stage to perform a Bharatanatyam recital.
Tadimita kita taka taka tadingina tom tari tajam tajam tadita tadimita kita taka taka tadingina tom tari tajam tajam tadita tadimita kita taka taka tadingina tom tari tajam
Thank you, Trishna and Sautya, for that wonderful performance. I would like to now invite our Dean, Professor Manu Santhanam, to deliver the welcome address along with the presentation of IC&SR.
A very good evening to all of you. It's indeed a pleasure to host our directors and deans who have really shaped IC&SR into what it is today. And of course, the very reason for IC&SR to exist are the faculty members of IIT Madras, and I'm very pleased to host all of you here today. We have, of course, some guests who have joined online also. Good evening to all of you. I hope I'm audible. Professor Natarajan, Professor V.J.K. Murthy, Professor P.S. Rao, am I audible? They may be muted, huh? Not sure.
Audibility is very low.
Can you hear me better now? Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Slightly better, not very much.
Okay. We'll try to adjust the audio here, sir. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Cool. I think. Hello. Okay. Yeah. So good evening once again.
It's better.
I would like to take this occasion to lead you through a journey of how IC&SR has evolved over the years. Of course, we'll begin first with making a tribute to our founders and past directors. I'm sorry, I should wear my glasses. And this journey will also lead us with a glimpse of how the projects at IITM have evolved over the years. Then I'll talk about the way that IC&SR is currently organized. Of course, for many of our faculty members, they know, but for our ex-deans and directors who have joined us today, I just wanted to briefly give them a glimpse of how we are organized today and how we've been doing our work for the past few years. Where do we go from here in terms of the way forward and so on. So just to begin with, let's start with the 1970s. 1973 is where the Industrial Consultancy Center was first set up. And Professor R.G. Narayanamurthy was the professor in charge of IC&SR, not IC&SR, ICC at that time, during the directorship of Professor K.A.V. Pandalai. This was from 1973 to 75. We then moved on to the second professor in charge, Professor V.J.K. Murthy, who's joined us online. I'm thankful to him for joining despite being so early in the US. Under the same directorship, Professor K.A.V. Pandalai. Then we had Professor V.C. Venkatesh, who was the third professor in charge. In this time, Professor R.G. Narayanamurthy, who was the first professor in charge, was now the director of IITM at that time. In the 80s, or rather at the turn of 1970s, we also had Professor Hans Wagner as an advisor, and Professor R. Ambalavanan, who was later also in civil engineering department for a long time until he retired in 2004. He was also the senior techno-economic officer at that time. So just to give you some highlights over the 70s, at that point of time, 1975-76, we have records of the IC&SR earnings at about 43 lakhs. In 1977, IITM got its first patent. And in 1979, October, we had the first IC&SR board meeting. And in 1980, at the turn of this decade, the consultancy guidelines were first framed. So just to give you some glimpse of major sponsored projects, I'm not going to read through all this. I think just to show you what we were working on at that time. Of course, many of you may associate well with the names who are here. And then in the 1980s, ICC was rechristened as IC&SR. The first dean of IC&SR was Professor P. Srinivas Rao, who's again online today with us. This was during the directorship of Professor Natarajan. So Professor Srinivas Rao was the first dean in 1979. Of course, switching between the decades, but yes, I would still consider that as 80s because that's when IC&SR really started functioning. And then the second dean was Professor J.C. Kuriakose, who could not join us today. He expresses inability to join us today. Again, Professor Indresan was the director at that time. And then we had the late Professor H.N. Mahabala, who was the next dean. At this time, Professor L.S. Srinath took over the directorship from Professor Indresan. So this was in the middle of that decade. And then Professor V. Radhakrishnan, who's joined us here today, he was the next Dean IC&SR from 85 to 90. And this was when the director, Professor Srinath, then was replaced by Professor N.V.C. Swami. Just to again give some highlights, in 1980, the first intellectual property rules were framed. We also had in 86, the inauguration of the ISRO IITM Space Technology Cell. In 1987, we started the Industrial Associateship Scheme, where we've successfully managed to bring on several industry partners. And 1988-89, our sponsored projects were at about 6 crores in that time. And in 1989, the research-based industrial consulting projects were actually introduced for the first time. Just again, another glimpse at some major projects at that point of time. So in the 1990s, our first dean was Professor V.S. Raju, again, who's here with us today, under the directorship of Professor N.V.C. Swami. Then Professor K.V.S. Ramarao, I'm not sure if he's joined online, but yeah, he expresses inability to join us today in this function. During the time of Professor Natarajan is of course here with us online. Thank you, sir, for joining. And then Professor Srinivas Murthy was the last dean in the 1990s. Of course, his term went on to 2003, where Professor Natarajan and Professor Ananth had terms as director during that period of time. So just to give you some highlights, of course, in 1994, during the time of Professor V.S. Raju, this building was inaugurated. The Technology Development Mission projects were started in 95, and the IGCAR, Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research and IITM Cell, was set up in 1996. At this stage, the sponsored funding reached up to 10 crores in 96-97, and 97-98, the consultancy funding was at about 5 crores. Just another glimpse at some projects during this time. So you can see the project values have started increasing. And of course, this is indicative of the times that we are in. And of course, as we came on to the 21st century, the first dean at this time was Professor Kalyan Raman, who was again with us today, during the time of Professor M.S. Ananth from 2003 to 2006. Professor Kalyan was then succeeded by Professor T.T. Narendran, who was the second dean during this time. Also, when Professor Ananth was director, and then Professor Job Korean, again, who was also here today, took over as Dean IC&SR. At this time, there was a change from Professor Ananth to Professor Bhaskar's time. So again, sponsored funding and consultancy funding at this time really grew. So sponsored grew more than 100 crores. Consultancy touched the mark of 50 crores at this particular time. And again, so at this time, the NPTEL program was really started. As we all know, that's become a game changer today for IIT Madras, and our leadership in this is lauded by all. So as we move on to the past decade, Professor Krishnan Balasubramanian was the Dean IC&SR for a period of 6 years with Professor Bhaskar as the director. And then the last dean was Professor Ravindra Gettu. At this time, Professor Bhaskar and Professor Kamakoti were directors during this term. So, of course, as you all know, we have really grown significantly. And all this is thanks to the vision of the past directors and deans. Some highlights from this last decade: UAY, Uchatar Avishkar Yojana, and imprint projects were started. We also started the data center in IC&SR, which has now given birth to our in-house ERP package, that is Tula. SAP projects were also started. So, and then Tula was actually started or went live in 2019. And that's where we started getting control of what we are doing here in terms of our accounting. Spark, which is again a scheme introduced by the Ministry of Human Resources Development, that started in 2019. In 2020, we set up the equipment reservation system that gave us access to all the facilities around the campus, and also set up the common instrument facility, which is now accessed by many students on campus. In 2021-22, of course, many of you may have heard about this achievement that our total earnings in terms of the sanctioned amount crossed 1,000 crores. And that's where we really scaled up to a different level. In 2022, last year, we also set up the Ramanujan Center of Excellence with DRDO, that's located in Research Park. Again, some major sponsored projects just to give a glimpse. So NPTEL, of course, continued, and then we had the facility for cryo electron microscopy. We have the indigenous processor and 5G. Those are some of the landmark projects that we had during this time. And of course, speech technologies. Right, so that was just a glimpse at our past, just to give you where we are at present and where we'd like to go from here. So the current organizational structure, of course, with the dean, there is a group of faculty members who are serving on the IC&SR board. We have senior advisors from industry and from research organizations, people who had worked with us in the past. We do have a deputy registrar in charge. And all the other staff that are in IC&SR are with us as contract staff who are basically specialists in specific areas. So we have chief managers in technical, administration, IT, accounts, legal, and IP. We have consultants in all of these segments. We also have senior managers who work with the chief managers in accounts, purchase, recruitment, and IP. We have section heads, system administrators, software developers, dealing assistants, technicians, office assistants, and facility assistants, many of whom are here today. And totally, we have more than 180 industrious, cooperative, specialized resources. That's another acronym, IC&SR. Basically, it's IC&SR is known for its staff and the kind of service that they provide. And our staff members are actually providing service in all of these different areas. What we do today is essentially facilitate and manage projects like IC&SR has always done with respect to recruitment, finances, the reporting, audits, purchases, taxes, travel, etc. We attempt our utmost to link funding agencies with faculty, identifying opportunities and bring to the notice of faculty, following up with different agencies from time to time. We maintain a repository of faculty expertise and provide linkage with appropriate industries. Whenever industry approaches, we are able to then identify the right expertise amongst faculty and connect them with the industry. We draft and manage MOUs, JDAs, and NDAs, and all other legal agreements. We have an in-house legal team that helps us do that. And of course, with intellectual property management, we do filing of patents, national and international, and also follow up licensing of these patents. Just to give you some glimpses of our achievements in 2021-22, I'll start with our sponsored project sanctions. As you see, the graph basically kept going up. The 3-year average is a good indicator of how we have been moving steadily upwards. Last year, of course, our earnings were upwards of 750 crores in terms of sponsored project sanctions. In terms of the actual funding received, again, we have been receiving significant amount of funding. I mean, this is the actual amount of money realized. Sanctions is one thing, but actual money that comes in is a different amount. In terms of industry sanctions, we have been growing steadily. And in fact, this year we are even close to about 420 crores already, with a couple of months data still to come. So we are growing steadily with respect to industry funding. And even during the pandemic, that is something that I'd like to point out. We really did not stop or slow down our interactions. Industry was still interacting significantly with us. And even the receipts from industry funding were pretty high during this time. And one thing I must remark at this stage, during the pandemic, IC&SR did not really close down. We operated from whatever resources we could use. And thanks to Professor Ravindra and Professor Kamakoti, who was actually the associate dean at that time, the office and the organization really still continued to work. And we were able to get help from them even while they were working from home, so that projects never stopped, our interactions with the industry never stopped, and we could continue the same rate that we had carried on before. So that, I think, that was really the feature that defined the kind of resilience that IC&SR has to really help our faculty members achieve technological brilliance. Just some highlights of the kind of projects that we got last year. Of course, you know that the values on projects have been increasing significantly, and we've had multiple projects where we saw very high value projects coming in, both from ministry and from industry. In terms of IP, we've been doing quite well. Last year, we touched a total filing of about 239 IP filed, and the number of grants also has been steadily going up. We are hoping to one day meet a dream target of 1 patent a day. That is something which is we are working towards by creating more awareness programs for our faculty and students. In terms of technology commercialization, actual impact of licensing and earnings, we have been growing steadily, but this is one major aspect that we would like to improve ourselves further on. Of course, our work in IP and commercialization has been appreciated, and we've been recently awarded quite well for it. We won the CII Industrial IP Awards in 2022, and also the National IP Awards in 21 and 22. And of course, we have also topped the Atal ranking of innovation achievements for a couple of years. I think 2021, we also did in 2020. One of the initiatives that we took in the last maybe 3 years is to create a common instrument facility, which students would have free access to. Free in terms of getting the time, not in terms of the actual usage, because all usage is charged. We are charging all the usage of the instruments in the facility so that we can have the required funds for the upkeep of the facility. So it's very important that we put in place a good business plan that we are able to use to look after the facility well. So we had, in the first phase, we bought 6 equipment, and you can see that some of them are really heavily utilized, while others, of course, we are still trying to build up a way to get these used better. Some pictures, this is actually located in the NAC, New Academic Complex 1. That's where we have laboratory set up where all these facilities are located. So we have lab technicians who help the students actually undertake their work. Most of these equipment are not really the high-end equipment, but ones that students can use quite easily. We are in the process of procuring a lot of additional equipment. Some of these are highly specialized, expensive, and require a lot of skilled technicians to look after these equipment. But we thought this is the legacy that we have to give to our faculty and students so that they can carry on the research unfettered. So this is a major initiative that's come out of our IOE grant that has been received. A lot of highly specialized equipment is currently under purchase. Apart from providing facilities for research, IC&SR also is trying to internally promote research or give research support to faculty members. So there are various ways in which IC&SR helps in research support. One is New Faculty Initiation Grant, which is now currently it's being sponsored by the TTK group. So we are actually getting funding out of the interest from the corpus that has been donated by the TTK group. And this is being used to fund new faculty. As soon as they join for a very small proposal, just a half a page. Basically, it's a proposal is more like a formality. We want our faculty to get started the moment they arrive in here. So they're given a grant of 5 lakhs. So that's a new faculty initiation grant. And we also coordinate the new faculty seed grant that comes essentially from the institute funds, but ICSR does the management of the resources of the finances of the new faculty seed grant, which has grown all the way up to nearly 50 lakhs for new faculty now. So it's a significant amount of money for faculty to utilize to set up their initial labs and also to get going as soon as they land up at IITM. We have been also providing funds for maintenance of equipment, especially for equipment that are quite expensive, difficult to maintain individually. And as long as the equipment usage is across several departments, if there are users, not just within the department of the principal investigator, but across several departments, if there are several users, we've been giving funding to really support with respect to maintenance or with respect to providing manpower and so on. Exploratory research projects is something that we do every year. It's a call that goes out for faculty members. Up to 10 lakhs is funded for blue sky work, which is basically expected to bring us some initial results, which will help the faculty members apply for much more sophisticated grants, which can really get them going on a completely new line of work. Team research projects is also another initiative that was taken a couple of years ago. We've not continuously maintained that, but that is something that we hope to go forward with to try and build up teams within the institute that can really work on complex problems from multidimensional viewpoints. So the total value of funding in the last academic financial year was about 5.6 crores just for these initiatives. Then apart from this, there are, of course, support to the PIs that is provided from ICSR. One is the most appreciated one is the overdraft facility or the negative balance, which other faculty from other IITs really blink when they actually hear this from us, that we are giving our PIs a negative balance to operate their projects so that they don't have to wait until the next tranche of fund actually arrives from the funding agency. That is something that we have been successfully doing, and our PIs have been very appreciative of this. Co-funding of travel that is charged to PCF. So when faculty go abroad for conferences, and if they use their personal contingency fund, ICSR overheads gives 50% to the faculty member to for co-funding of the travel. There's advance of TDS and GST that is provided on all projects. During COVID, we also provided support for sustaining research. This was a time when funds were not coming in very fast from the funding agencies, and ICSR had to accommodate a lot of requests from faculty to help them keep the manpower engaged and to provide funding for them. That was the support for sustaining research during COVID. We do help our faculty file as well as maintain their patents. All of Indian filing is completely sponsored from our internal ICSR funds. And for the foreign filing, there's a sharing agreement where 70% of the share actually comes from ICSR and 30% from the individual faculty or inventor who's concerned. So this is a major support that runs into several crores. And we also give partial publication fee for select open access journals as per the list drawn up by the institute, and also help manage the Institute Research and Development Award. Just to give you some ideas of how much was the expenditure last year on this, about 32 crores was spent overall in the year 2021-22 towards support provided to the PIs. One of our game changers has been Tula, which is a trendsetter in project management and accounting. Of course, there's a lot behind the name Tula that was chosen, and that basically shows the kind of work that we would like to do, the kind of services that we'd like to provide. Tula is an in-house ERP software that addresses all functional needs for project management and accounting, for consulting and sponsored projects handled by ICSR, and provides project information to PIs in a dashboard format. The good thing about Tula is the information is very current. So the balance that you see reflected in Tula is the actual balance that you have in your project. And this reconciliation is done on a daily basis. So you can actually get accurate feedback about the status of your project. What is the amount of money right now, I can really find out the correct amount. And this is also correctly mapped with the institute workflow so that there is no problem with the accounting overall as far as the project is concerned. Of course, this is not just related to accounting. We have started managing many of the other functions of ICSR through our in-house ERP software. Just to give you some milestones, of course, we started, as I said, with the data center in 2017, and in 2019, Tula really went live. 2020, of course, the software was named as Tula, and there's data exchange between Tula and workflow that was allowed at this point. Recently, we've also launched a My Staff employee portal where PIs can actually manage their project staff in terms of extensions or enhancements that they need to bring in for their project staff and so on. So all of this is now just a click of the button. There's no running to one office or the other to try and follow up on your on getting a balance sheet, on getting the latest UC and so on. Everything is available directly through a click of a button. What you can see, of course, in the last row is the extent of transactions that we have. These are essentially the average transactions, average monthly transactions that you see. Nearly 64,000 average monthly transactions in the year 2022. And the peak transactions typically happen during the year end, around March. That's when we have to provide utilization certificates to agencies. That's where you see a lot of requests coming in through Tula for provision of UCs and so on. Now, of course, there's Tula in the future is going to be even PI friendlier rather. Okay, so we are coming out with the mobile app that we launch in just a couple of minutes. For project information system for PIs will now be available on your mobile. Now everybody has a smartphone. You don't need to wait for a computer access to really check your information. You can get all of that on your mobile. We are trying to also integrate other modules in terms of purchases, in terms of reporting and MIS development, IPM. Already, I think you can actually see the status of your intellectual property, your patents and other trademarks that you've already worked on. All that is already in your dashboard, but we are trying to map several other applications from IPM also. And of course, infrastructure upgrade to handle the volume increase. We are really trying to upgrade our infrastructure to see, because our projects are growing, number of faculty are growing, and number of transactions is growing. So this is something that we are sprucing up significantly. Of course, ICSR IT also helps in managing several access to several software like the Office 365 licenses and so on. And also the equipment reservation system that makes sharing of common equipment across the institute possible. Apart from our in-house setup for project management, ICSR has also set up the right facilities. IIT Madras has set up the right facilities. ICSR just manages these facilities. Of course, you are here in this beautiful auditorium. And we also recently renovated our Hall 2, which is our essentially our boardroom. It looks as good as any executive boardroom anywhere in the country. We have the AMM Arunachalam Auditorium, which was earlier called as Hall 3, which is an 80-seater hall. And we also have the Terrace Hall, which is on top of the food court, where up to about 500 people can gather for exhibitions, for large functions, and so on. So that's again one of the latest additions to our infrastructure that we offer to our faculty members. Now, at this stage, I'd like to just lead you to where we want to go in the future, just to take you through our vision and mission. Our vision, obviously, is to continue to provide high-quality professional service to IIT Madras, enabling it to realize its research and innovation goals. Mission, I've provided a few statements there: to provide seamless recruiting, financial management, purchase support to the research investigators to carry their work unfettered, to find avenues for enhancing research funding, to create and maintain relationships with funding agencies for smooth operation of sponsored projects, to constantly increase the engagement with industry towards joint research and commercialization of licensed technology. Towards this, we've also undertaken, as part of our 50-year celebration, the effort to connect industry directly with our departments. And so we are doing department-wise programs to connect people to industry. And this has been quite successful. So far, we have done about 4 departments. We are going to plan for all the 16 departments by the end of June. The other aspect is, of course, to create new opportunities for offering internal research support to the PIs. Again, we want to enhance the extent of internal support, because the more we support PIs, the more external grants they get, the more our coffers get filled, so the more we can feed back into internal projects. And to provide, of course, a safe and cordial atmosphere for productive teamwork. That's what we want to do as far as the mission is concerned. Just to give some goals, of course, these have not been debated in a large group yet, but this is something that I'm opening out. Maybe at sometime in the future, we'll talk about this. Complete integration of all processes within Tula and seamless compatibility with workflow. Of course, workflow is the software that comes from the admin side. And we want to have a perfect compatibility so that all the work gets carried on peacefully. Actively provide solutions to PIs for project and purchase management, especially now when purchases are getting really big. How can we actually streamline our operations in such a way that we can reduce the time it takes for purchases to get realized? So we touched this 1,000 crore mark last year. Obviously, it's difficult to maintain a certain position. Getting there, sometimes we just get there without our knowledge. But maintaining our status at that particular location is something that we really need a lot of effort from everyone. So to maintain more than 1,000 crore sanctions year on year and increase industry contribution to more than 500 crores, that's our goal. Of course, excluding CSR, so I'm still hoping our alumni office will continue to pump in more through CSR projects. And achieve and maintain active liaison with major funding agencies, DST, SERB, DBT, MIT, MOT, MOD, and so on, because we have started engaging with them on a more direct basis. Our staff make a visit to Delhi and actually visit all the offices to see where our files are and get these files to move between offices. And that's something which we want to do on a more rigorous basis. We want to up the internal funding to PIs to at least 25 crores. That means we have to generate more internal revenues. And from this, we want to give back to the PIs so that they continue to do their wonderful work. As I said, patent filing, we want to approach this mark of 1 patent per day and also strengthen our technology commercialization significantly. So with that, I'll come to the end of my presentation. I just wanted to launch our mobile application. It will be available for all faculty to use from Monday. So today is just the official launch. So what do I need to click? Okay. That your mobile app does not have my pictures and my projects. Each one of you will be able to see your own projects. Right. So thank you all very much. It's indeed a pleasure to host you all here. And thank you for being with us to celebrate this wonderful milestone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. It was indeed an eye-opening and thought-provoking to observe ICSR journeys for the last 50 years. Now, at this juncture, it's important to acknowledge the hard work and contributions of our IITM faculty members in the field of science and technology. As such, noteworthy contributions forms an integral part of what we do at ICSR. Their determination and efforts in their ongoing research is what keeps ICSR functioning. We have compiled a few videos from our faculty members sharing their views and experiences with ICSR. Let's see what they have to say.
The Center for Industrial Consultancy and Sponsored Research has become a very important support and service center for the coordinators of the different projects we have at IIT Madras. I would like to highlight three aspects which makes ICSR so strong. First is a purpose. It is clear to all the staff that we have at ICSR that they are offering a service to the faculty members and the coordinators of projects. This is very important because when somebody approaches ICSR, we don't want to be like a police station and say that this can be done or that cannot be done. Instead, we want to tell faculty how to get things done so that faculty members can focus on research, on their core business and not worry about the paperwork, the legal aspects, the accounting, auditing and so on. Second aspect is the building of the team. The ICSR team is made up of professional staff, people who are experts in their area. And we tell them two things. One is that they have to serve with a smile. They have to make sure that the coordinators are getting what they need to for their projects and also make sure that they are felt welcome at ICSR. The third aspect is the resilience. Things keep changing when we go about doing research. Rules change, laws change. We had the pandemic, which was a major obstacle, but IIT Madras did not stop its research during the pandemic. It continued. And ICSR was a very important reason why this could be done. It was an amazing journey to be part of ICSR as its former dean and also as a faculty member who has done a lot of projects through ICSR.
Gives me great pleasure to talk a little bit about ICSR and the facilities that ICSR has offered to the several hundred principal investigators on various projects. Having been associated with IIT for the last 12 years and having been a project PI for this long a period of time, I want to start by congratulating the visionary people who started an entity like ICSR 50 years ago. Apart from helping faculty execute both sponsored research and industry-driven projects, ICSR has also been instrumental in creating intellectual property for IIT Madras.
We also have several administration changes that have happened over the years that has made things easy in terms of creating a ERP system within the ICSR that makes it efficient for faculty to actually understand where they stand in terms of finances, where they stand in terms of intellectual property generation. And also of late there's been a lot of activity in trying to collect data and make sure that project reports are all available online.
And when it comes to the projects, management of the projects, purchases, we feel this is the most professional place. Here things are so systematic. Everything is automated. The workflow is automated. The file movement is automated. And you have a problem, the solution is here.
The service provided at IC&SR regarding the sponsored research project details, how to apply, getting the endorsement certificate and getting the RTGS details, all that is very quick and the service is simply very more efficient and perfect.
Today we have an excellent ICSR internal portal through which I can go and look at projects, I can look at the IPs that are filed and granted, I can look at the staff that I am hiring, I can also look at accounts, how much money is allotted, when was it allotted, how much has been spent, how much is remaining. So all these services are provided by this excellent internal ICSR website.
They give startup grants when any faculty joins here, and these startup grants further catalyze not only the research or the growth of their lab or the infrastructure in the lab, but also their ability to bring in more funds based on the research that they carry out using these startup grants. ICSR has funded very large team projects also, and this has allowed for a lot of interdisciplinary research to take place between faculty in different sets of departments.
Several schemes were introduced during my tenure, and several deans were also responsible for implementing and making policy decisions in making it more attractive for industries to reach out to faculty and IIT to get their job done and to interact continuously for their continuous development process.
One of the most impactful initiatives of ICSR has been the setting up of the Intellectual Property Management Cell, which has a very streamlined process for the filing and licensing of patents developed by the faculty and the students and staff at IIT Madras. This has really helped IIT Madras become a leader in IP filings and commercialization of our innovations.
I joined IIT Madras way back in 1986 as a PhD student and then a faculty member in 1988. From when I have been involved with ICSR. ICSR used to be a small wing in the building sciences block, and from there it has its own separate building. And my experiences with ICSR have always been extremely pleasant, and it has always been a pleasure to work with the staff at ICSR, and they've always gone out of the way, much beyond their call of duty, to help me with the projects that I have been working with.
I'm really happy that ICSR goes out all the way to help faculty take up more projects and to deliver better, and all the support staff that they have come up with, the last 3 deans especially, have done a wonderful job. I also would like to record my appreciation for ICSR during COVID. It was exceptional support that they delivered to all the faculty during that very stressful time, and they worked day in and day out to ensure that things are done on time despite all the COVID restrictions.
One particular thing of interest that I think we should definitely highlight is ICSR even now sends their colleagues or staff to faculty to fill in details in different funding agencies' forms, and that's very, very convenient.
I'm here for nearly 5 years. So as far as the progress of ICSR is concerned, I cannot comment much on that in these 5 years because a good portion of it has been affected by the COVID. But I would say that the services that I have received from ICSR have been quite good. I mean, it has made life easy with regard to my research projects.
So I joined the institute in 2008. So it's been 14 years. When I came in, probably industry projects, government projects. But now we have significant CSR projects. And even within CSR, there are different kinds of CSR projects, from industries, from philanthropes, from foundations. So I really commend ICSR to have grappled and in one way thrived because of this diversity. So, and I hope it keeps going higher and higher in terms of its service quality.
I've been a part of IIT system since 1995. What I have seen from my own perspective is a tremendous change, especially in the last 10 years. During the period of the last 3 deans, I've seen a great positive change in the way ICSR has been functioning. Without the presence of a strong center like this, it is difficult for faculty members to run their projects effectively and efficiently.
Information asymmetry is one of the biggest challenges these days. ICSR at IIT Madras works in minimizing the information asymmetry through informing various projects through sponsored and consultancy process to help faculties and students to increase the feasibility of doing better research and contribute to the ever-growing scientific field.
I'm incredibly pleased to be speaking on this occasion of 50 years of ICSR. ICSR has been at the center of IIT Madras growth in terms of sponsored projects and consultancy projects.
and the kind of support that we receive from ICSR, which is what allows us to aim big and bring in bigger and bigger projects. The kind of support that we have, IIT Madras has grown tremendously, and also in my position as Dean of Global Engagement, many of the Institute of Eminence projects we run through ICSR, and the support and the promptness with which we receive service is really fantastic.
ICSR has been one of the backbones for our research and projects that we get from either Department of Biotechnology, which is a Government of India agency, or various other sources, both private and industry. Most interesting things that is very unique about ICSR at IIT Madras is that they allow some things that many other institutes don't allow, is allow the researcher the flexibility of overdrawing on a project, which allows the ability to cover up for any gaps in the receipt of funds and disbursement of funds, which can happen many a time during the change of financial year, etc.
I'd been with ICSR for say over 2.5 years, with the great support of the leaders, great support of my staff. We had been able to do all the things overwhelmingly, and it's been a very enriching experience to me personally to be part of this wonderful center.
It's really nice to see that ICSR now is 50 years old. It's come a very long way, I would say. We had great deans, T.T. Narendran, Professor Joy, more recently Professor Krishnan Balasubramaniam and Professor Ravindra Gettu and Professor Manu Santanam now. So a series of great deans who have shaped the way ICSR operates in campus. I have certainly been a huge beneficiary of all the services that ICSR has provided over the years.
A very good evening to everyone. So my name is Trishna Chandar. I'm from the legal cell of ICSR, and I will be your MC for the remaining portion of today's session. So we will now move to the next segment of today's session. It is the felicitation of our former deans and directors. The success and achievements of IITM as a premier academic institution and ICSR as a center can be attributed to the vision, leadership, and hard work of our directors and deans. We want to take this wonderful opportunity to felicitate our former directors and deans for their significant efforts in spearheading growth and change. ICSR was, as we all know, was established in the year 1973, and 9 directors have given direction to ICSR so far. Among them, we are lucky to have 3 ex-directors who are attending today's event, out of which 2 are attending the event in person, and 1 ex-director is attending through video conferencing. Now we will facilitate our past deans and directors. I request our director, Professor Kamakoti V, to hand over the mementos. Okay. We will now begin the felicitation of techno-economic officers. The first recipient is Dr. Balakrishnan. The first recipient is Professor Ravindra Gettu. He was our dean for the period between 2018 to 2022.
Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you, a big thank you to everyone. It's been a wonderful journey. It's a great place to be fortunate to be the Dean, and well, nothing else. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Dr. Balakrishnan. He was our Chief Techno-Economic Officer, CTEO. It's not here. Okay. Our next recipient is Mr. Sundaram, who was our Chief Techno-Economic Officer. Sir, we request you to share a few words.
Respected distinguished guests and fellow faculty members, this particular center was developed by the faculty, for the faculty, and it's a center of the faculty as such. One of the dictums most of the deans have been drilling into all the staff in ICSR has been the faculty will do extraordinary things, but the staff in ICSR should learn to do simple things extraordinarily well as such. And over a period of 50 years, ICSR has grown, research has grown, consultancy has grown leaps and bounds in our institution. Now, the most felt need was one more dictum which the deans had put was, we should not only be prosperous, but we should look prosperous. So with the support of the directors have been kind enough to give a lot of freedom for operation of this particular center as such. Let me conclude this with a quote from the 1974 annual report of the institute as such. There is no substitute for self-reliance or for being innovative, imaginative, and properly motivated and determined to achieve this targets we set for ourselves realistically. We must and shall succeed and deliver the goods. There are miles to go, no time to relax, rest, or take it easy. If you are to attain a higher peak of excellence and be a pace setter, which certainly are our objectives. And let me also add one more extract from the first convocation, which was addressed by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. This Institute of Technology will set an example to others in never using their knowledge to unworthy ends, but using it for the betterment of humanity, for the betterment of education, and for making the world a true human fellowship. So let me once again thank all the faculty who have supported all our activities in this prestigious institute. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Dr. Suresh V. He was our Senior Techno-Economic Officer, STEO. Sir, we request you to share a few words.
It's okay, just I wanted to say thank you. In fact, I was the last STEO who served ICSR, and as Dean said, and we have all professionals taking care of each sections of ICSR. I once again wish ICSR grow and then reach 2,000 crores target very soon. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor Srinivasa Rao, who was our Dean for the period between 1971 to 1981. He is attending the session through video conferencing. We request him to share a few words.
Professor P.S. Rao, can you unmute and share a few words? Yes, sir, please.
Sir, I have unmuted you, sir. Please check.
Oh.
No, sir. You have muted again, sir. Please press the space bar.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You're heard now.
Okay.
Auditorium, can you hear P.S. Rao?
I can hear. Can you hear me?
Auditorium, can you hear P.S. Rao?
Yes, yes.
All right. Please go ahead.
Are you hearing everybody? Namaskar to you. I am very, very happy to have heard. Am I audible, sir, for all the people?
Yes,
am
sir.
I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you're audible.
Okay. I am very happy to have heard about the excellent report presented by Professor Santana. A very, very small beginning we had 50 years back, and it has grown into a very big tree. I am very happy to see that. In a way, I can claim to be the first Dean of IC&SR for two reasons. From year 1973 to 79, the corresponding process was known as process in charge. The deanships were introduced only in 79. And when Professor Natarajan asked me to be the Dean Consultancy in 79, I suggested to him that it is more rational to join these two portfolios together, consultancy and sponsored research. And until that time, the sponsored research was under the professor in charge of general administration. I suggested to Professor Natarajan that it's more logical to have consultancy and sponsored project under one banner because most of the problems are similar in nature. He readily agreed to that, and that's how IC&SR was born in 1979. So I'm happy to see that a very small seed sown at that time has grown to such a big fruitful tree. There are so many other speakers, I'm sure, who are to follow me. So I would like to summarize by saying that my contribution as the first Dean of IC&SR was to combine the consultancy and sponsored research into one portfolio, setting up and streamlining of guidelines for recruitment of project staff, separating IC&SR funds from the institute funds. I had long sessions with the finance officer at that time and asked him to permit me to have my own independent financial unit. Mr. Ramaswamy, accountant, was the head of the unit. It's only just 3 people at that time. Now I hear there are about 60 people working in the accounts unit. So separated the IC&SR accounts from the institute accounts. And then another contribution I made was to institute IC&SR fund by requesting colleagues to charge 15% as overheads for all the projects. When I was the Dean, I saw an obscure clause in the Act of Parliament which said that up to 15% overheads can be retained by the institute, but beyond that, the money has to be surrendered to the government of India. So I said, all right, we'll collect up to 15% and retain the money with us. And that's how the IC&SR fund is. I'm very, very happy, sir. Congratulate all the deans who followed me, who have done an excellent work. I'm very happy that IIT Madras is occupying the #1 position with 1,000 crores of sponsored research and consultancy per year. It's a fantastic figure. I'm very proud of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views. We will be sending your memento to your residence. Our next recipient is Professor V. Radhakrishnan, who was our Dean for the period between 1985 to 1990. requested to kindly share a few words.
First of all, let me thank you all for inviting me to this function. As a mechanical engineer, I know how a product is evolved. They say it's a S-curve. That means in the initial stage, it will be slow, then it accelerates, and then comes to a plateau, which it remains. And if you want to survive, you have to start another one. And I have observed that ICSR has been doing it consistently. Thereby, the S-curves are added, and you are at a very high peak all through. And I'm sure that this trend will be continuing further, so that this organization, which is under IIT, will be the example to be followed everywhere. Thank you very much for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor V.G.K. Murthy. He's online. Sir, we request you to share a few words.
Professor Murthy, you can unmute yourself and share a few words.
Sir, please press the space bar on the keyboard, sir. You'll be unmuted.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening. My warm greetings to all of you. I thank the Dean for giving me this opportunity to participate in the Golden Jubilee celebrations of IC&SR. Like all very successful enterprises, IC&SR also had a very humble beginning 50 years ago. I wish to narrate a few details of its baby steps. Some of them have already been detailed by Dean Santanam. It was Professor Pandalai who took very vigorous steps to promote links with industry. To this end, he set up this consultancy wing under the charge of Professor Narayanamurthy in 1973. Later on, taking advantage of the offer of German assistance in this activity, a separate, completely independent unit called the Industrial Consultancy Center was set up in 1975. This center functioned from the ground floor of the BSB on the front block, and later on, when Professor Wagner joined the ICC as an advisor from Germany, he took steps to shift the location to the BSB rear block on the western side of the first floor. Professor Wagner was a bundle of energy, and he saw to it that the new office had an invited look and all the appurtenances of a modern office. And ICC owes a lot to his initiative in the initial stages. As far as I was concerned, I was looking after the administrative work, setting up the rules for the consultancy, proportioning the income under the various heads, like what Professor P.S. Rao has mentioned. And at that time, as the consultancy charges were of the order of a few lakhs of rupees per year, and the sponsored research outlay was probably about 2-3 crores, but that was handled by the central office, not the ICSR, not the ICC at that time. It was Professor Indiresan who gave the stimulus for the vigorous growth of ICSR when he took over charge, and he combined the sponsored research and consultancy functions together under one head, and the name ICSR came into being somewhere around 79-80. Before I close, I would like to make one comment. This relates to the industrial consultancy part. There is a complementarity in the kinds of expertise available in the industrial and academic worlds. These ties are seen as catalysts for the two-way diffusion of knowledge across the interface. thereby deepening and broadening the expertise of the two sides and contributing to the national economic development. However, there is a cultural difference between the two worlds, the academic world and the industrial world. The protocols of strict confidentiality and tight time schedules enforced in industry are at variance with the ethos of open discussion and the relaxed ambience characteristic of the academic world. So some people express doubts whether the growth of the industry academic world links will reach the level that was expected. There are other differences also in attitudes, ambitions, and aspirations of the people of the industry and in the academic world. I think the strong growth of consultancy part, as evidenced by the report given by Dean Santhanam, sets a doubt all these doubts. And has demonstrated that such differences do not stand in the way at all. I congratulate the IC&SR for the tremendous progress it has made over the years, and as becoming a shining example to similar units elsewhere in the country. My best wishes for the continuation of its illustrious journey. As we celebrate the Golden Jubilee, I congratulate the Dean, the staff of the IC&SR, the Director, and all the others who have contributed, and all others who have contributed in the past at one time or other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views. Our next recipient is Professor V.S. Raju, who was our Dean for the period between 1990 to 1995. I request you to share a few words, sir.
Once again, namaste to all of you. Delighted to be here. Very nostalgic. I have been a beneficiary of the IC&SR as an young faculty. I remember Professor Kamamurthi. You know, I was invited by BHEL to be a consultant to their Tripoli project. And that time going abroad was such a big thing, you know, so this process enabled that. And so many other things we were able to do because of the IC&SR. And then as Dean IC&SR also, it was a learning experience. Tried to simplify things, everybody cooperated. Professor Swami always accepted all the major changes we proposed, and others continued of that. It's just wonderful. And so everything grows together. Finally, as a foundation engineer, I keep saying, you may not see the foundations, but without that, nothing is above. So therefore, the innovation people have done, which of course may not be visible today here, and everything put together as really, it's a very happy and satisfying situation. I wish you all the very best, and thank you again. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor Srinivasa Murthy, who was our Dean for the period between 1998 to 2003. I request you to share a few words, sir.
Please stop me if I take too much of time. But I have not prepared, but my thoughts are a few random ones. But at my age, it is generally random. of course, it is very not so focused. I'm very happy to be here after 3 years of COVID stoppage, and then very exciting. And I see a lot of changes, both in terms of infrastructure, and also I am sure that the working culture and the outputs, etc., as I could see from this thing. And then actually what happened is the day before yesterday I came, and then in the night I was so excited that after food I started randomly, of course random is there with me always. So I was walking around, and then one of the security started following me, because he thought that I am some kind of a guy who is, because I was so excited to see the places. And then I was looking at what it happened, because I entered this campus in the December of 1968, when most of the people were not born. And then I left on 2014, April 30th, to Indian Institute of Science. Of course, the life was quite good and fast, and IC&SR always helped us in all the things. And the DST was formed in those days in 1973 by Arkat Ramchandran being the first secretary. And one of the first projects was only for 8,000 rupees, which we got it because Arkat Ramchandran, we knew him, and so we had influence to get 8,000 rupees project. And then today, of course, as you can see that you may laugh at it, but those days it was a very big amount. And we have grown to 1,000 crores, and I am sure that it will keep growing. But my advice to everybody is that, yes, it is good to get money, and then even still I am working right now at an Indian Institute of Science, and I am still in the many committees, and I am chairing, and I see many of the faculty from IIT Madras coming and making their presentations, both progress and also project proposals. Even though there is some conflict of interest, but because I considered as Indian Institute of Science, so I can always say IIT Madras is different. So I could do, but I find that the quality of work that is being done and the delivery and deliverables, everything is much, much higher from IIT Madras compared to various other places. And also here, the one thing that was big difference for me was the speed at which things are done here and in Bangalore. Bangalore, initially I was getting so much worried, and then worked out. They used to tell, this is Bangalore, this is not IIT Madras. And for everything I used to compare with IIT Madras in terms of particularly project funding and project executions and purchases, various other things. And now I have become Bangalorean, so here it looks too fast for me. So I have to slow down, and then thing is. So basically, without taking much of your time, I would like to say that this is a wonderful setup, and I am sure that every time there have been freedom for the IC&SR setup and the IC&SR dean and the board to do, and I am sure that the present director, even though in our days the intelligence was only natural intelligence, today it's all artificial intelligence, but still I am sure that in spite of all these things, there is going to be a lot more this thing, and every time I get a IIT Madras news, I read it because I have put it into the Google thing. So every day I get IIT Madras news there, and then I'll be so happy to see all these things that are happening. And you have all my blessings as an old man, I can say. And then I wish you all the best. And it's a wonderful thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor Kalyana Raman. He was our dean for the period between 2003 to 2006. Sir, kindly share a few words.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's nice to see there are lots of dreams that I had as a Dean IC&SR that should be done to the center has been all accomplished. You know, there are lots of things that I thought should be done. The only thing that I feel sorry for Manu is, if at that time I had to sign so many papers that I did,
today, with all the projects that you have many more signatures to give. I hope you have simplified it so you don't have to sign so many papers. I think the thing about IC&SR is it kept innovating, and there was freedom to do that, and it always tried to do things, simplify, and also the service mentality. That is, IC&SR existed for the faculty and not the vice versa was the motto, and that has carried on through even to this day, and has helped a lot. For me as a faculty, that has been very helpful. Then as a dean, I realized that that is what I should be doing, and I think all other deans have carried on through, and all the directors have supported it. And one more thing is, very many of our activities impact the 30 or 40% of the population of the country, which is in the organized sector. And we felt that how IC&SR can also impact the unorganized sector of the country, which is 70 to 60% of the population. And I think very many projects that you have taken now in CSR and things like that also enable that to happen. Nice to see that. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor T.T. Narendran. He was our dean for the period between 2006 to 2009. Kindly share a few words, sir.
When I moved in here many years ago, a friend of mine in the industry asked me, "How good is your consultancy?" I said, "Your consultancy." Well, there's not much to say. 43 lakhs and 1,000 crores. That sums up the story of IC&SR. I was probably just one wheel in that whole motion. I wish all the best to IC&SR as a unit of IIT. And I only say, grow, grow, and grow, but sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor Job Korean, who was our dean for the period between 2009 to 2012. Kindly share a few words, sir.
Good evening. I was a dean, as she said, between 2009 and 12. I really enjoyed it because of all the administrative jobs at IIT Madras. This is a position where the person has to be enabler. It's a very nice thing to do. So a lot of things could be done at a dean's table. Anyway, let me congratulate Manu and his team for organizing this program. It's an important milestone, and thank you for inviting me. And if I remember right, in 2012, when I quit, the turnover of IC&SR was around 300 crores, if I remember right. So in 10 years, it has become something like 4 times or 3.5 times. I think next 10 years, I hope Manu and team will make it maybe 10 times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is Professor Krishnan Balasubramanian. He was our dean for the period between 2012 to 2018.
Good evening to all of you. Make it very brief. First of all, I want to thank Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthi for taking a leap of faith in my ability to handle the complexities of IC&SR. Just want to say that all along, while we did some wonderful things, and I want to also thank both Sundaram, Suresh, Prema, many of the colleagues that actually helped achieve a lot of things during my tenure. But there's one thing that I want to share is what probably kept us going, and was the fact that we were trying very hard to listen to all our stakeholders, particularly the faculty and the project staff on a regular basis, and that really, and many of the things that we did were based on their inputs, and it was not us who did it. We just took theirs and filtered it, and then found what is the right thing to right thing to do, and we went forward. And that's kind of the mantra that actually has benefited us a lot during our time. So thank you so much. Thank you. So I want to thank all the faculty and all the project staff and all the IC&SR employees for supporting, and thank you all.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to the felicitation of our former directors. Our first recipient is Professor R. Natarajan. He is attending today's event through video conferencing. Thank you so much, sir, for attending today's event. I request you to kindly share a few words.
Professor, kindly.
We are not able to hear you.
Professor, please press the space bar. You'll be unmuted.
Yes, sir. Now you can. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I just sent a text to you, message. Just click that, you'll be unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Auditorium, please respond.
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
At the very outset, it's a highly nostalgic journey that we are going through today. It is so thrilling to see ex-colleagues like Professor P.S. Rao, Professor V.J. Murthy, Professor V. Radhakrishnan, all the other deans and so on. So this is the passage of time which gives rise to anniversaries. Recently, we celebrated the 75th anniversary of our independence. Again, recently, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of IIT Madras. And today, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of one of the important systems or subsystems of IIT Madras. From what we have seen, I have no doubt in declaring that when institutions, other institutions are looking for benchmarks and models to emulate, the IC&SR and IIT Madras is a model institution for promoting industry-institute interaction. It's a great thing that has happened. And another thing I want you to notice is that there has been a steady, continuous following of dean to director and so on. Professor M.S. Ananth was the Dean of Academics while I was director. Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthi was the Dean of Planning and so on when Ananth was the director. Then after Kamakoti was a dean, associate dean, when Bhaskar Ramamurthi was the director. Therefore, there has been many changes which have taken place as we have seen today, but with continuity that provides for sustainability and stability of the system. As far as Professor Ananth and I are concerned, we were very lucky and happy to work together. On many things, we produced a report on brain drain, which was very much appreciated, the DST project. And then we also served to declare the vision for IIT Madras. Since both of us have dealt with thermodynamics, chemical in his case and mechanical in my case. So I would like to read out the vision that we developed, which reflects our basic interest, to convert IIT Madras into an academic institution in dynamic equilibrium with its social, ecological, and economic environment, striving continuously for excellence in education, research, and service. I'm glad that it continues to be in front of the subsequent director. So just a couple of words about what are the questions that a strategic plan answers. Questions like, what do you want to be in the next 10 years? You may have a lot of activities in an institution, but unless you have a direction, a goal which you want to reach, then it will not have a direction. You may go in random, as Srinivas was pointing out, random direction. So this goal setting is the first aspect. Are we doing the right thing? Resource allocation, product mix choice, restructuring, and cultural change. Again, what is it that we want to focus on? Are we doing it well? This represents the efficiency of implementation, quality, cost effectiveness, and so on. And what happens as a result? Impacts. When you're talking about industry-institute interaction, there is a fundamental problem. There are two partners who are ready for marriage, but why doesn't the marriage take place and immediately? Because our expectations are different. I organized, when I was chairman of IICT, 4 regional conferences on promoting industry-institute interaction along with CII. So from the beginning, we told the two parties, namely industrial experts and faculty members. Faculty members should not ask for things from industry, and similarly, industry should not ask for things from faculty. One of the important things that they ask for is faculty commitment and faculty time, because we always have excuses for not providing it. So you bring to the table what you can do for the other party. That is the essence of marriage, for instance. And then you will succeed. Lastly, I would like to point out that when other institutions are looking for models and benchmarks for industry-institute interaction, they should look at IC&SR. The purpose for which it was set up, the combination of industrial consultancy and sponsored research into one synergistic whole, and then also how to organize the different activities, how to relieve the faculty members from the drudgery of administrative work. I'm sure that when in Infosys, for example, they used to have a T-shirt saying $1 billion company. Now they are more than $1 billion company. So you are at the moment 1,000 crore sponsored research center. I am sure that you will enhance it by many orders of magnitude. Again, let me say how thrilling it is to look at the in-person and the photographs of people with whom I've had the pleasure of privilege of working. And the current director is a director of the Times. He interacts well, he's articulate, interacts with government, interacts with Rotary clubs and so on. And I wish you all the best in leading the Institute and the IC&SR. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is our ex-director, Professor M.S. Ananth. Kindly share a few words with us, sir.
Very good evening to all of you. It's been a pleasure to see so many familiar faces, but I must say that I do come back more often than most people. So I'm around the campus and I do see all the faces quite often, but it's nice to see the faces of people who retired and came back now for this function. IC&SR has always been a wonderful part of IIT, and I've benefited from its existence because of projects, but I've also felt that it had great potential. In fact, it is one of the one part of IIT that sort of triggered the idea of starting a research park. And I must say in this context, I have an amusing anecdote to tell you. I think it was 2006 when the Secretary of Commerce called me and said, Ananth, you have to come to Delhi to receive an award. I said, what for? He said, this award is for the maximum number of patents by an academic institution in a given year. I said, I think there's a mistake. Last year we had only 6. He said, others had less. But now the numbers have gone into hundreds. 200, more than 200 in this thing. 241, yeah. So the numbers have become really large. I personally think not only have faculty become more creative, I think the circumstances have changed considerably. Also, for patenting, you need partnership with the industry, because academic institutions are reluctant to spend money on patents. And it's been partly the industry that has helped us jointly apply for patents and get so many of them. This is not to take away any credit from the faculty of IIT Madras. I want to again thank Professor Kamakoti and Professor Manu Santhanam for inviting me here. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Our next recipient is our former director, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthi. Requested to kindly share a few words.
Good evening to everybody assembled here. It's wonderful to be part of this function. I just realized that I personally had interacted and known every one of the people who were mentioned today, starting from, actually I did not personally interact with Professor Pandale, so that's a small correction, but he was the director when I was a student, so I have some feeling of having personally interacted with him. And so it's so true also with Professor Natarajan Murthy. I did not interact with them personally, but everybody else, including Professor Wagner, because that was in a personal capacity. He happened to be a friend of my wife's family. So that came later, but he used to come to India often, and I used to meet him in the personal capacity. So all the other deans, I joined as a faculty here, and this is the yes building. You always get a yes for an answer. And all the deans and the people who came today, everybody has helped us. When I started doing projects, it is really wonderful the way IC&SR came forward to help you. I particularly remember Dr. Balakrishnan was always smiling and always saying it can be done. Whenever you wanted to, when you wondered whether some leeway can be had one way or the other to execute some time-bound task. IC&SR has really grown, and what you saw is actually the hockey stick effect started some 10, 12, 15 years ago, and the growth rate has been phenomenal. I think it is sustainable growth. We have, at least when I was watching it carefully, I could see that it was sustainable. And this is roughly what I think, this hockey stick, we sort of hit it in IC&SR about 10 years ahead of the country. This is roughly what is being referred to now as this oncoming Amrit Kal. Okay, if you really understand it, it's the hockey stick effect when growth, impact of the growth also, because it reaches a certain critical mass in terms of the level of funding, level of effort and so on. And we can see that in terms of what we are doing, what we are delivering. Just want to leave you with a number. I was looking up the total budget for CSIR. CSIR is also an anagram of IC&SR. Total budget of CSIR in 22-23 was 5,600 crores. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request our Dean, Professor Manu Santhanam, to present our Director, Professor Kamakoti, with a memento. We'll be moving on to the next segment of today's session, which is a panel discussion between our director, Professor Kamakoti, Professor R. Natarajan, who is joining us through video conferencing, and Professor Ananth and Professor Bhaskar. The discussion will be moderated by Professor Mahesh Panjagnulla.
Good evening. It's my distinct honor today to be sharing the stage with over 3 decades of academic leadership of this country in the form of having led this great institution, IIT Madras, starting with Professor Natarajan, Professor Ananth, Professor Bhaskar, and now Professor Kamakoti. First of all, I want to thank IC&SR for giving me this opportunity to share this stage and guide this discussion on some thoughts of where this institution has been. So we all remember very humbly how we got to being #1 in the country. Anytime a story like this is written, a story spanning several decades, there have to be multiple people that have added value and kept the wheel turning in their own way. And we heard the story of IC&SR, and IC&SR has been an integral part of the growth of this whole institution, IIT Madras. Starting with the time when we were all students, and to now when we are taking advantage of the brand IIT Madras as faculty and now part of the leadership team of the institution, we have realized the immense brand value that IIT Madras bestows on every one of us, on each and every one of us. The business card that we carry is extremely powerful. And the power in that card is a result of decades of hard work of all of the people here. So I want to start with Professor Natarajan. And what we will do is go around, we'll talk a little bit about the times that they experienced as leaders of this institution. And then we will turn our gaze into the future to talk about where this institution is headed from their vantage point. Professor Natarajan, I want to start by requesting your thoughts. You steered this institution during some very difficult times when staff of this institution were not particularly well disposed, times when you made some long-lasting changes on the student side. Can you tell us a little bit about what those times were? And it'll help us understand the context of where we are today. You're on mute, sir. If you can please unmute.
Sir, please press the space bar, sir. You'll be unmuted.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll just give you two anecdotal matters. At one point of time, the Central Lecture Theatre was water cooled, and we normally had water problem in Chennai. As you know, IIT Madras was no exception. And FC Kohli, the then deputy chairman of TCS, Professor C.R. Muthukrishnan and I, we had a meeting with him and said, can Tata's help us to convert the water-cooled system in COT to an air-cooled system? And he said, look, don't ask me for money. You provide service to me and you make yourself valuable, then earn our gratitude in terms of provision of facilities. That is an example that one can carry through in terms of industry-institute interaction. At the moment, we have different kinds of collaboration with the corporate entities, and each one of them has added value. Secondly, some of you, Manu Santanam, I believe, is one. He said that he was a class fellow of my son who graduated in 1984. So when they entered the IIT system, IIT Madras, for instance, there were a couple of changes. There was no JEE. In fact, the institute was looking for students to join, good students to join. And then look at the facilities, the residential facilities that they had. They started the courses in CLRI, and the guest houses were outside. So currently, apart from what IC&SR provides, the other facilities that are provided in a residential institution like IIT Madras, the faculty and the students must appreciate the enormous gifts they have received from the government, from the public sector. Getting good faculty are the anchor on which the reputation of an institution, the activities of an institution are built. And getting committed, dedicated, competent faculty is very difficult. In every institution, we have about 4,000 institutions, HEIs, higher education institutions in technology at the moment, and getting faculty is an extremely difficult thing. One of the IIM directors was telling us some years ago that when a faculty member joins an institution, he's looking for three things. First, of course, a good working environment for himself. Secondly, a job for his spouse, a good school or an educational institution, a college for his children, and of course, good medical facilities for his aged and aging parents. And the government of India was wise enough to understand this. So within the IIT campus now, of course, you have a central school and you also have a Banwani school. You have a good hospital which Professor M.S. Ananth has strengthened, elevated to a high level of service by teaming up with an excellent partner. And the spouses of faculty members, they have a wide array of opportunities to engage themselves and be an excellent addition to the family. Therefore, we have an ideal situation, and we are a model institution for other institutions because there is a considerable competition among institutions now with the NIRF ranking and so on. So may IIT Madras grow to greater and greater heights. May the IC&SR grow to a greater and greater heights. Thank you.
I joined here as a faculty when you were the director, Professor Ananth. I think all of us know NPTEL, as we know today, has made a huge difference. My first question to you is, who told you there was going to be something called COVID and that we would need NPTEL?
No, I had no secret informant. But I think the important thing was that I was doing academic courses when AICTU had these inspection visits. I don't know if it was there before. So I went on an inspection visit to 3 institutions. And the same faces turned up in all 3 institutions as young faculty. And they were all our PhD students. So I asked him, which institution do you really belong to? He said, sir, 8 to 10, I'm in this institution, 10 to 12. It sort of reflected very strongly the fact that there was a shortage of faculty, and this shortage of faculty could not be made up overnight. And then the question was, what can you do? The only thing you can do is use developments in ICT to produce more faculty. And at that time, the UN came up with a report that said that the GER, the general enrollment ratio in higher education, which is the ratio of people in higher education by the number of people eligible to get higher education, this ratio should be at least 30%. At that time in India, it was 15%. And for example, Japan was 80%, US was 60%, and so on. And China, of course, was always frustratingly ahead of us, 50%. And so then we decided the only way to do this was through this. And luckily, I think the cooperation was remarkable. We took it up here. We were not sure we'd succeed. In fact, a lot of people said we have to give detailed prescription on how the courses should be done. I said, don't start anything now. We don't know how it should be done exactly, so let people do exactly how they want. Except that we tell them do it with sincerity and offer it as a service. So that's the only thing I can say.
And the
it
second,
worked out very well.
And the second visible sort of impact of your directorship is now the research part. It is, you started it and then it's now grown beyond many of our imagination. But the one point that I think many of us, I sort of found this from a little bit of research, you were responsible for turning around the faculty count curve. That was not easy, I'm sure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can tell you an amusing anecdote that happened when Professor Natarajan was director. We gave Remar Luss, the Alexander Ford Humboldt president, an honorary PhD in this very hall. And I must thank our photographers here, because they took pictures from the back and all the heads were bald. So it was a striking reminder that we needed to hire faculty. But in fact, I told Professor Natarajan that, and he smiled and said, so it started at that time. I think this was probably as late as 98 or something. So Professor Natarajan had another year or two to go. But it was a striking reminder that we needed faculty who were young. And we did a very, very concerted job. But at the end of all that, I could get a maximum of about 35 faculty members per year. I think 600 faculty applications were received, but we could really pick only 35. But we decided we won't compromise on quality. We'll take good people. And I think Bhaskar's experience was also very similar. About 35, you do a lot of homework, 37. So I think that's one of the things that we did.
I think the one aspect of what you did that we've all stood to benefit is almost a calendarized promotion and recruitment process where there is no vagaries to that process. Thank you for that.
No, I think that we have to thank the act of IIT, because there is no specification about how many professors, how many assistant professors, and how many associate professors you should have. So we have a freedom to make everybody a professor.
And I've had the privilege of knowing Professor Bhaskar slightly from close quarters, having served as the dean, with him. I've found him to be a remarkable intellectual in many ways. And one of the things, Professor Bhaskar, that at least stands out for me from your term is the idea that you freed the curriculum from faculty clutch and grasp. The fact that there's 40% of the credits, at least in every student's hands, has been an amazing enabler in many ways. That apart from many others, we'll talk about the others, but I would like you to highlight some of the things that stand out for you.
Thank you. IIT is known, IITs I suspect, all IITs are known for being fairly agile in revising their curriculum and their academic programs, IIT Madras included. And I think we've been hiring periodically. I remember it in the 90s also. And 2000s. So what happened in around 2015 is just looking at the way our student intake was going up, and the aspirations of the student. With such a large intake per year, of course, compared to the size of the cohort in the country, it is small. But compared to what we were doing. It was also clear that their aspirations were getting diverse, and it's not possible to put everybody willingly through the same mill. The opportunities were also becoming wide, more diverse, and people were doing well in many things. So why straitjacket people? So we said, let's see whether we can free up. Everything is done by the Senate, but you can nudge the Senate in some directions by giving an offer of options. And I must say the committee that time that we constituted, headed by Mr. Shanti Pawan, I just saw him walk in, did this job very well.
Yeah.
And what has happened is that has been the catalyst to enable us to offer the upgrade programs for dual degree.
Yes.
And essentially today, I think 200 odd students are upgrading every year. Right? I don't know if Pratap Haridas is here currently on their own. So they're choosing dual degree programs on their own, doing a subtle branch change on their own. A lot of the things that we want to do, like not having branches chosen on the basis of JE rank, which you can't change. You can sort of change this way. So it has enabled many things. And that was the idea. But really, the credit should go to the Senate and the faculty. It's just that we sort of present it and say, can we do this? And people say yes.
You're being very generous with that. But I think the idea of steering the university in the direction of becoming more liberal with our thinking is really, and I must say I've done a little bit of homework. This kind of freedom in the student science is again country's best standard. Another thing that stands out for me in comparison to Professor Ananth, since you're sharing the same sofa, I should point this out. The idea of rewarding faculty at multiple stages is something that you, Professor Bhaskar, championed. Maybe what was your thought process in that whole?
Thought process was very simple. I think it is known that people respond to recognition and reward. Sometimes all you need is a word of praise, genuine word of praise. Our system, our compensation system, in the government is not very conducive to that. It doesn't want to do that. So what we decided is, I remember Professor Ananth mentioning to me one study done at Princeton, I think, right, which said that, I think they studied IIT faculty and said that, they really take it very hard if they don't get promoted or they don't get recognized. So we said, why not use recognition as a incentive? Okay, if you're doing well, you recognize those people, those faculty, just with saying that we noticed that you're doing well. That's really what it is. Okay, and if you do it carefully, you make sure that only the really, by and large, you can always make mistakes, but only the really worthwhile faculty are, the ones who have something to show, get those recognitions. I think it works to charge up everybody. That's really what the intention was, nothing more than that. It's also nice to say good things to people.
Sure. I've known Professor Kamakoti for the last decade at least, since I've joined here as a faculty. But now, as in the last year as the director, the remarkable amount of energy that he brings to this job, the passion with which he goes about his day to see what can be done that day, which stands out as the best for this institution, is something that is a gold standard for many of us. You've completed a year plus a few months. It's already doesn't feel like a year because there's so many new things that are on the anvil. So maybe you should talk a little bit about the IIT that was bestowed to you, and you say this on a golden platter, and then to see where you have taken it, even in the short span of time.
Thank you, Mahesh. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I took over again, there are two important things that were in front of us, which I thought that we should leverage immediately. One is the NPTEL platform and the digital course delivery, which we had perfected, I must say. We have more than 7 lakh people who write the certification program, etc. And then the BS data science. It started with Professor Bhaskar. At this point, it was just at the cusp of going high. So at this point, I also thought that why don't we, open up IIT to a larger audience. That is where we started the journey. We started looking at schools, specifically government schools. We also started one of the things which Professor Ananth mentioned, the gross enrollment ratio. We thought being NIRF 1, we wanted to respond to every academic need of our country. We also started looking very deeply into classes 5 to 8. We started introducing courses like out-of-the-box thinking. We got fairly good response. Around 1 lakh people registered and around 60,000 people completed the course and around 1,500 wrote an exam. So these are things which made IIT as an accessible institution to the general public and especially people below poverty line. That is something which I believe we have done some good job for the country.
Sure.
And the second thing is, of course, the IDD programs. Again, Professor Bhaskar, because of a 40% relaxation, we were able to fit in an interdisciplinary program by which we can have a second degree. The first degree is because of the karma called JE rank. The second degree can be something different. And we also started courses like MA Public Policy, Quantitative Finance. And we are seeing quite a bit response to that. For example, I just heard that 165 applications came for quantitative finance, from which 35 were selected. So these are some of the good experiments that we could do. Also, we did have the new CEI Act, when our recruitment process had to be fine-tuned. And this, we have done 2 recruitments and a promotion. And these were also some very good learnings in the last 1 year. And that has really seen, I just think it is January 17, 2022, when I took the pen from him and signed. And 1 year has completely gone very fast.
Yeah. And it has been a very momentous 1 year too. I'll maybe go back to Professor Natarajan. Professor Natarajan, you, after your first innings as the director at IIT Madras, you took on a bigger role as the chairman of AICTE, from where you had a vantage view of the whole country's technical education system. Where do you see IITs helping the broader technical education system in the country? What are some things that you can help us understand from that perspective? You're muted, sir. You're on mute, sir, Professor Natarajan. You need to hit the space bar.
No, I think when Kannan intervenes, he is able to hear it.
Yeah.
Kannan has to tell him.
Kannan.
No, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can you
yes.
ask him to hit the space bar?
Okay, sir. Please hit the space bar. It will be unmuted.
I have unmuted myself. I have unmuted myself.
Hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yeah, there is an advantage and a disadvantage in utilizing the expertise of the IIT faculty members for various purposes, accreditation, and even, for example, recognition and so on. Because our standards are set so high that we expect similar standards from the other institutions. And in terms of expertise, quality, service, and so on, we are way ahead of the other institutions. There are about 4,000 engineering colleges in the country. Therefore, they used to complain that don't expect us to do what you are doing. The resources that you get from the government, the kind of faculty and students that you're able to attract, you're not able to do so. Therefore, don't expect the same result. In fact, our university in front of our campus, the Vice Chancellor of Anna University used to be a member on our board. And he used to challenge us in the board saying, you give me the same resources, human, financial, and things like that, I will also create the same kind of an impact. And just one point here, when during the last quarter of the financial year, when the government of India has excess funds to excess funds to offer, it is the IIT system that it looks for, because they know that we follow strict protocols, strict rules and regulations and so on, the ethical aspects of how to spend money, which is very important, we are able to do much better than the others. So this is a tremendous recognition of our value as an institution which follows ethical practices. 3 brief comments I would like to make before I close, since you have given me the opportunity. Apart from the directors and the deans that we have talked about, there is one other individual who, as deputy director, has contributed tremendously to the growth, quantity and quality of our institution, and that is Professor C.R. Muthukrishnan. And I would like to take this opportunity to recognize his fantastic service. I was a deputy director when I was director, and I take this opportunity to pay my appreciation to him. Secondly, we are talking about faculty members. When I used to address the JEE successful students who joined our institution, I used to tell them it is very difficult to come to this institution through the JEE, but it is also even more difficult to enter this institution as a faculty member, because we have very strict entry barrier for competent faculty members. We do not compromise on quality. The last point I want to make is, we are an higher technological institution, a technical university, actually. If you follow the guidelines of the NEP, National Education Policy 2020, no standalone technical universities, no standalone medical universities, no standalone universities. So we could not exist. They want all the institutions to be general education institutions in which technology is one component. I do not really agree with that recommendation, because quality and excellence comes through specialization. So let me close there. If there's anything else you want to ask, I'll be happy to respond.
And we'll come back to you in a little bit again. Professor Ananth, I want to talk to you a little bit about IIT's relationship with the government. The government is our primary funder. There's still no doubt, and it may stay this way for the foreseeable future. But I will also say that we are the brand that we are because we've been left alone to sort of do what is academically the pursuit of excellence. By our definition, the pursuit of excellence. It's somewhat been tenuous, and you've navigated that relationship very deftly. Can you talk a little bit about what the way it was, the way it is, and maybe the way it should be?
I think it's been the same all the time, except that people have changed at that end, at the secretary level and so on. And I think I was lucky. I saw 6 secretaries, but all of them more or less agreed with me finally. One thing is, there are 2 or 3 thumb rules I had. One was, I can't say that we quite did it. I told the Senate that if you don't keep the secretaries busy, they'll keep you busy. So we have to come up with proposals that they have to consider seriously, so that it'll keep them thinking about it. And they'll call you for something, and you can remind them that your file is still pending there. And so they are hesitant to call you. That's one thing. The second point is, I think it is important that we are very frank in our conversations with the secretaries, and I think they also permitted me to be frank. But from the beginning, if you're frank and absolutely open about it, they sometimes tell you, they've told me, Ananth, you're difficult. I said, you knew that before you appointed me. They said yes. And then, so it went on from there, but they never questioned my bona fides. I think I'm just lucky. Maybe others have been lucky too, but maybe not always. As far as I'm concerned, as long as they feel that you are sincere about what you're asking, they don't interfere too much. Even the research park, for example, we created a Section 8 company.
Yeah.
And the secretary, before moving the file, he wanted me to create a society instead of a Section 8. I said, I have consulted the best auditors and the lawyers here in Chennai, and they advised me this way, this is the best. I don't know any more about it. Maybe I know a little bit more than you do, but neither of us know enough about it, and I've been given very good advice. So I'll stick to a Section 8 company. Again, he said, this is a difficult proposition because he had not done it before. But I said, I'm afraid you have to do that. But it did happen finally. I mean, I think it was a lot of luck is involved also. I mean, the right people have to be there. They have to be receptive, because in principle, he could have stopped me. Similarly, there were academic discussions and they asked us to start some programs and I refused. And the secretary again said, I said, you haven't read the Act of IIT properly. I look at it, all the academic decisions rest with my Senate, not with anybody else. And when I have 150 Senate members who know their subject, who talk about it and give me advice, how can you give me better advice? Because they would often say, I have 40 years experience, so let me advise you. And I used to tell them a story, which I think many of you may not know. There was a Professor Valluri here who was in the Senate. He was later director in AL, and I've heard the story. Apparently, he had a lot of arguments with Professor Sengupta, who is much older. Professor Valluri was one of the youngest professors. And after a lot of argument, Sengupta couldn't convince Valluri. So he simply said, young man, I have 40 years experience. Then Valluri had this statement, sorry, sir, you had 1 year's experience 40 times over. I think it's a remarkable statement. And you can't easily respond. But actually, this is true. 2 years experience is not twice 1 year's experience. It has only probably 1.05 times the value of 1 year's experience. So you have to remember that experience is repetitive, and you never use authority to stop an argument. I mean, you have to give logical, equally convincing statements in order to win an argument. Right. I think I have said this before to the secretaries, and I must say they responded very well too. They could have stopped me anytime. We had problems with the planning commission, for example, but we invited Montek Singh Ahluwalia here twice. And, I was obsessed with Research Park, so I spoke to him about it all the time. And he said, no, it's a very good idea. Then he would say, you told me already, it's a very good idea. Then when the planning commission opposed it, I could call him and tell him, look, you said it was a very good idea. Now they are opposing it. He said, look, not all papers come up to me. I said, no, it has. And then, and the next day I had all the planning commission, 6 people who objected to it, call me and say, oh, no, it's a very good idea. We are all in support of it. So, I mean, you have to handle it with a bit of tact, but at the same time, you have to be lucky. Because any one of them could have stopped it. Lots of them have negative powers. And,
that's, I guess, the definition of government. More negative power than a few that can
I think it's automatic. But on the other hand, you have to, if you convince them that you have thought about it, and you can't tell them that I'm going to succeed because I don't know.
Sure.
So I told them I don't know either, but I know a little more about this topic than you do. That's all you can say.
Sure. Professor Bhaskar, I mean, one of the things that when I look at the body of work, your 10 years as director, you've defined a very clear role for IIT Madras in India as to what are some 2 or 3 things that we should do. Meaning, being a recipient of taxpayer money, we have to be relevant to the country. And I've heard you talk about it in some alumni events as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your vision of what you see as relevance and the different flavors of that relevance that you've brought to all of us?
See, many institutions, many organizations receive taxpayer money. We must be aware that we receive a relatively disproportionate part of the taxpayers' money. We have been treated by the government of India, the IITs, and not just IIT Madras, IISc, IITs, and some other institutions like this as the crown jewels. And so a lot is expected. Just like you think of a family in which everybody is invested in one person to pull the family out of it. There are no limits. And you can't say, this is not my job, that's not my job, I was not hired for this. You can't say those things. So wherever you can do something, that was wherever we could do something. He talked about now doing something for schools. We can say, oh, IIT's Act doesn't say anything about schools. That's not the way to look at it. Okay. We have to be careful, of course, not to dilute ourselves, not to spread ourselves so thin that we don't deliver. But I think everything is on the table. Academics, trying to, do a shock and awe in some area, get some Nobel Prize, whatever. I mean, equivalent of that, because the country needs that. Okay. You need solid industrial consulting. You need to really go and do nuts and bolts work, help the industry grow. Not much of it will be visible to public, but you have to do it. I think, and strategic, defense, everything is on the table, whatever. And we hire people, hopefully, who are capable of being entrepreneurial in various aspects. I don't mean startups alone. And we have to encourage that. Our BS online was an entrepreneurial effort, right? BSc degree online. Similarly, so many, I mean, I can think of during the pandemic, it was really the peak of the first wave actually. And some of you may remember Naval Ignite Corporation had a blast. And they initially thought like everybody else boiler blast, but it was not a boiler blast. And some people lost their lives. So there was serious concern because they were worried it will happen again or it will happen other places. And they called me and said, can you send some experts to figure out what happened? And I didn't know how to ask people to go. It was the first wave. But actually one of our faculty members who I didn't even know first who could solve this problem. It was like an unknown. We found a person who had done something somewhat similar at Mahendragiri. So he said he'd go. He said, I have a car and a driver who's in a bubble. I can go. I just called the NLC director and said, all you have to do is just don't ask questions about TA, DA and all that. Whatever this man needs for his vehicle and driver, you pay. And he solved the problem. It was totally total outlier. It was not what everybody thought it was, but it really resolved a whole lot of tension for everybody. So, these are the things. How do you measure outliers when we contribute? So I think everything's on the table. That's the only message I want to give from that. Wonderful. I don't think we can ever say this is not our job, that's not our job. Thank you.
Sure. And what that also means is, in some sense, there is room for all of us faculty members.
Absolutely.
Right? Everybody that does from pen and paper work to someone that does purely applied industry-driven work. Professor Kamakoti, one of the things that IIT Madras, being #1 ranked for this long, is known for in India today is, in some sense, a pursuit of excellence in everything we do. We talked of IC&SR. Every time I walk into this building and ask any staff member, I present a problem, the only answer I get is I see. Yes, sir. Okay, so the yes, sir part never goes away. Such a wonderful place to come and get anything resolved. And the standards they've set are truly global. The time taken to get a project approved, time taken to do whatever, provide all of the services. You look at our startups, you look at the patents, in every which way, we have our own definition of pursuit of excellence. Can you talk a little bit about where you see going in the next 3 or 4 years in terms of what you see as our pursuit of excellence?
Yeah. So one of the things that we need to currently focus upon, in my opinion, is to bring in a cross-disciplinary culture, interdisciplinary culture. I think that we are working with the dual degree programs. This has consolidated. And the big boon that we got, again, started with Professor Bhaskar, is the Institute of Eminence. What Institute of Eminence gave us, we are essentially different from what other institutes have been doing. When we sit in the review committees and we see what they are performing, we have put 60% of money for research and not for infrastructure, and all our infrastructure are funded to the HEFA mechanism or other mechanisms. And this, the first 78 projects that we did, actually brought a very, very good cross-fertilization of ideas, in my opinion. And then when we have gone for the phase 2, where we saw 50 projects, and all 50 were excellent. And then now we are seeing some 15 centers of excellence, from which at least 5 will grow to a very exceptional quality. And I think that is going to be a very big determining factor. I hope all the 50 projects go to that level of quality. The other important thing that we are seeing now is a growing interest in entrepreneurship and innovation. Things like our CFI, Nirman, the GDC, these are seeing lot more of projects coming, lot more of interested students. And very interestingly, the 6th in the maximum number of recruiters have been our own startup, Agnikul Cosmos.
Wow.
And that is something really determining what quality of institute that we are now focusing. And down the line, I also saw a sticker, your placement is cancelled with my photo. I've been telling the kids that we need to have the first 2 or 3 days of our placement should be by our companies, and you should go and join our incubated companies, or you should become an employer. I think that's a standard we are also focusing on. We also see a lot of fundamental research coming up. A lot more on, say, even in niche areas like space manufacturing, photonics. We are seeing a growing interest to explore into some areas which we would not have dared to. And what we see in the Discovery campus today, like the E-plane or the port center, deep sea exploration, that is something coming up. Every area. So as we opened up after pandemic, I had the privilege of last 1 year inaugurating at least 50 plus conferences and workshops. And every workshop we actually saw, I used to ask for some talking points, and we see something very, very interesting is being developed by IIT Madras. And some of the things going forward, we look for a school for sustainability. And that, I think, will be a very big thing for our institute. Of course, we have got the approval from the Senate and the board for a department for medical sciences and technology. Again, reaching quality healthcare to billion is something very much appreciated. We have enough amount of expertise from a technology end. We do have good contacts in the medical fraternity. And of course, we have very good backing of artificial intelligence. I think we can get a great school, and over the next 10 years, we can aspire for something very big in this area. And then we are also seeing things like the lab-grown diamond. I think it's the first time in the history of any budget that an institution, one project of an institution finds a 3-minute mention in the 3-minute mention. And I think that's something remarkable. So these niche areas for a period of time, along with this interdisciplinary culture that we have developed, and a strong focus on our fundamental research. I think we are touching every point. And then a good translational research mechanism that we have built with the research park here. I'm sure we are going to go to great heights. We have also experimented, with our patents. We have a very good patenting mechanism in this IC&SR, where we have an AI-enabled system, and that we are seeing like 200 plus patents. But interestingly, last year we had 170 granted, and none of the patents got rejected that we have filed in the last 5 years. That is also something remarkable. Right. So I believe that this will take very, very positive.
Wonderful. Thank you, Professor Kamakoti. That does mean it really shows the vision with which we are moving forward under your leadership. Maybe we should close with one round of comments from all of the panelists. I'll again start with maybe this time Professor Ananth. Okay, Professor Natarajan. One of the things that we've been ranked #1 ever since there have been rankings in India. But I'm sure none of us are happy just being #1 in India. Can you talk a little bit about where you see IIT Madras or what your wishes are for IIT Madras 15, 20 years from now? This is something we'd like everybody to chime in with their opinions, and we will close with that. Professor.
Professor, please, you are muted, Professor. Just press the space bar on the keyboard.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make 3 brief points. And let me also congratulate you. You have had an excellent set of questions for all of us. We are sitting in IC&SR building. There is one other aspect of consultancy that we should concentrate on, and that is the educational consultancy. There's a lot of scope. Other institutions want to be like us, want to promote teaching, research, and industrial consultancy, and so on. Therefore, we can be the model, we can be the benchmark for them, and we should promote it. Just like we help industry perform at a higher level, other educational institutions also to perform at a higher level. The second point I wanted to make is that like we have CSR, corporate social responsibility, there is also something called educational social responsibility, the responsibility of higher education institutions to be of service. And the last point I want to make, what do our alumni want us to be? And, they want us to produce Nobel Prize winners. And there was a comment about it in the alumni newsletter. Therefore, we should also take into consideration the aspirations of our alumni, because they will feel very good, whether that is necessary or not, I don't know. They will feel very good if they find that their alma mater is being looked upon with admiration and so on. And the last point I want to make is regarding these rankings, both QS and THE rely heavily on perception. Somebody has to do I have done a brief study on the impact of perception. And if you remove, they should publish two sets of rankings. One with perception and the other without perception, without asking people in general random opinions on what they think of another institution. If you do that, then you'll see the impact of perception. Because some of the IITs, it is reported, refused to participate in QS and THE because of the high level of 40% weightage for perception. So we are on the right track to reach higher levels of excellence. Excellence is the mantra here. Continuous improvement is the basis of excellence. And may God take IIT Madras to higher and higher and higher levels. Thanks.
Professor Natarajan, I'm happy to see you as sharp as I've ever known you, and we wish you were here in person. Thank you very much for being part of this panel discussion. Professor Ananth, same question to you, and I think he brought up another point with alumni. Professor Natarajan started the idea of reaching out to alumni, but you really moved the needle. And please tell us a little bit about your aspirations for IITM as well.
It's very hard to say because first of all, we wrote that vision after a lot of thought. And the vision says we want to be in dynamic equilibrium with our environment, social, economic, and ecological. The economic part is the research park, which is why we did that. The social part is socially relevant projects that we are doing. And like Kamakoti says, now the number has increased. And our awareness of that has also increased tremendously. I think over a period of time that has improved tremendously. Then the third is ecological. I think there we can do even more. We've done some. We've tried to preserve the greenness of the campus. We tried to resist the increase in strength only because, not because we feel possessive, simply because whatever you do, you're still going to be 1% of the total education system in the country. So if you improve other education institutions, or if you produce courses in NPTEL, which people read and their quality improves, you're contributing more than just increasing numbers on one campus. And increasing this numbers on this campus has had its own problems. Because, I mean, the wildlife attender once came here and spoke, he said, sir, human beings are incompatible with wild animals. So if you increase human beings, the wild animals will die. And I mean, he was saying it very, in a very simple manner, but I think he was right. We are demanding people. If you increase the human population, it's very difficult to preserve the wildlife here. But I think if we do a knowledgeable job, we did a biodiversity study once. I think we have to do one more study because things have changed, and then use that study to essentially tell ourselves what to do in order to preserve the environment and improve it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Professor Ananth. Professor Bhaskar, your thoughts on where you want to see this institution go?
See, whether we want it or not, you are now embedded in a country which is going to 8 and then 15, 16, 20 trillion GDP. I don't know how many of us understand or go through what it means. All right. This is really that hockey stick thing which I talked about earlier. And so really, the sky is the limit, what we can do in that matrix. Okay. And I think if we make it possible for everybody here, faculty, students, staff, I would say, right? Project staff, everybody, to really make it possible for somebody who is stepping up to the plate to excel. right? Find a way to give them a platform where they can try it. They fail, it's okay. I think, and even our alumni, because maybe they're not doing it here anymore, they're doing it elsewhere, but I think the seeds must be sown. And I can see that, I'm seeing this happening. And I think the contributions can be tremendous in the whole country and later on in the world. So I really don't, I think the sky is really the limit. It's very trivial to say, well, we should do this, we should do that. And this is really the best time. The next 15, 20, 25 years in this country is really, of course, it will be modulated by what's going on in the world and geopolitics and all that, but it's really not going to come in our way. And then, of course, we'll have after that the problem of landing in the right place, meaning not making the mistakes that other semi-affluent or more affluent countries have gotten into. We may go through the same mistakes. I hope not. But I think it is really the best period. And so I think the faculty, the students particularly, I think this is really the staff. I say we should really, staff can also do much, much more than they think they can do. Correct. We have to really enable this. We have crossed many, there is a point at which you can't do much, when the resources are too constrained. And I think it's always going to be, there are going to be constraints. I think we should never complain because the whole challenge is a constraint maximization problem. You have to maximize, the ability to enable people who are trying to, raise their bar in different ways, enable them. There'll always be constraints. There'll always be problems from government, this, that, by rules, that those are not going to go away. But I think it's possible. And if we focus on that as general mantra, not just specific targets on this and that, I think we'll surprise ourselves. That's what I think.
Very good. Professor Kamakoti.
In addition to what Professor Bhaskar said, we need to enable everybody with everything that they would like to do, and then see what can they achieve. And again, failure is first attempt in learning, right? So FAIL is first attempt in learning. I also strongly believe that local relevance will give us global recognition. So we have to be relevant to the society. And some of the things that we have undertaken, specifically the rural interaction centers, the next 5 years, like to see that every post office of our country has one IIT Madras rural interaction center. I think that we have reached a very important level. And this communication with our ecosystem, something I believe will take us to great heights. We will have a lot of societal problems that we will solve, which essentially will find their global recognition and acceptability. Like, for example, the 5GI. And I'm sure we have a great Amrit Kal in front of us. And this is the opportunity. And we should be a system for enabling. And as long as I am the director, I'll ensure that this enabling part will be very, very strictly and carefully adhered to.
Wonderful. It's been a wonderful evening having this conversation with all of you. I think if I sum up in 2 sentences, I'll take sky's the limit, and everyone in this institution remains enabled to aspire to the limit that is sky. Thank you all for being part of this discussion. Thank you, Professor Ananth, Professor Bhaskar, Professor Natarajan, and Professor Kamakoti. And thank you all for being a wonderful audience. Thank you.
That was indeed an interesting and engaging panel discussion. I thank our esteemed panelists and moderator for sharing their experience and vision. It was great to listen to your insights on IIT Madras's journey so far and the way forward. I now invite Professor Kamakoti, our director, to share a few words.
So, just to talk about IC&SR is my first administrative home, and Gettu was my first administrative boss. I learned a lot of administration here. It also gave me a very, very good insight into how the institute functions, specifically the financial part. I will not be wrong if I say that ICSR is the spine of IIT Madras. And we had on all the fronts. And this has also been a place where we started experimenting many things. For example, Tula was a very important experiment, wherein we wanted to look at a digital framework, a paperless office. We also done many things, like I think over a period of time, Manu will demonstrate this, how to track files by having RFIDs, right? So where the file moves from one part to another part. So many things, whenever we think of some experimentation, we start with ICSR, and the ICSR has been very open to take these and try to put this in place. I also carefully checked the national ranking framework. 80% of the parameters or data that we are submitting has some connection to ICSR. So that essentially says how much this particular center is important to us. We will support this, and I'm sure this is a center made by faculty for the faculty and run by the faculty. And we will bring up whatever best things that we will be a model. Again, we are not searching for models. We have been a model for others. And this has actually enabled concepts like Research Park, as Professor Ananth mentioned. We have a great time ahead and a lot of challenging problems that are going to come. And I'm sure this 1,000 to 10,000 crores is not a dream, but will soon become a reality with the way we are progressing. I wish ICSR all the best, and thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your words. We will now move on to the final segment of today's event. I request our Dean, Professor Manu Santhanam, to deliver the vote of thanks.
So as we bring the evening's proceedings to an end, I must admit that it's been a wonderful evening thanks to all of your support, and it's very good to see you here in such large numbers. I'd like to start by thanking, of course, our Director, Professor Kamakoti, who's always been fully supportive. He considers ICSR as his home away from home, and we always welcome him back here whenever he wants to come here. Of course, what we are today is because of the past director's vision. So I really would like to thank Professor Natarajan, Professor Bhaskar, Professor Ananth, and who have joined us today and who provided us their vision, not just in general, but in terms of where we want to go from here. I also acknowledge the leadership of the past directors who shaped the early years of IC&SR, or the Industrial Consultancy Center as it used to be called then. I'd like to thank, of course, our former deans, including Professor Ravindra Gettu, Professor Krishnan, Professor Job Kurian, Professor T.T. Narendran, Professor V. Kalyan Raman, Professor Srinivas Murthy, Professor V. Radhakrishnan, Professor V.S. Raju, who were able to come here and bless us today, as well as past deans and techno-economic officers, Professor Amblavanan, Dr. Balakrishnan, Mr. Sundaram, and Dr. Suresh. I also thank Professor V.G.K. Murthy and Professor P.S. Rao, who joined us online on this momentous occasion. I salute all of their contributions to IC&SR. Of course, I'd like to thank all IIT faculty, who are the very reason for the existence of IC&SR. I'd like to have a special mention to the faculty members who serve on the ICSR board, as well as on several of our committees for recruitment and purchases. Also, I'd like to single out a couple of faculty who made contributions to today's event, Dr. Abhishek and Dr. Merin, who have prepared a virtual reality enabled video on ICSR. If you have the time, please do check it out. It'll be in the exhibition hall. When you are on your way out, you can check out the VR headset, or we will have it on display for some time. Please feel free to come and check it out sometime. They've done a great job in making this at a very short notice. I'd like to thank all the current deans, Professor Koshi, Professor Mahesh, Professor Raghu, Professor Murli, Professor Liji, Professor Vasa, Professor Shanti Pavan, and Professor Pratap, who have been a pillar of support to me. Special mention, of course, to Professor Mahesh, who handled very deftly this engaging conversation amongst 4 of our visionary leaders. And I also would like to thank Professor Natarajan and also the Heritage Center staff who have dedicated a wing in the Heritage Center to ICSR for this anniversary event. This entire month we'll have exhibits on ICSR on display. I urge our fellow faculty members to go and check this out. My sincere thanks to our registrar, Dr. G.N. Prasad, and also to former registrars of the Institute, because without able support from administration, ICSR cannot move very efficiently forward. I thank the current staff from the admin building, especially the finance and accounts, stores and purchase, and also audit. I'd like to, of course, single out our audit staff for their unflinching dedication in helping us sort out the issue of quickly moving our purchases forward in this phase 2 of IOE. Especially since IOE has come, we have really worked very well as a team with our audit people. I'd like to thank, of course, our engineering unit for their on-time help in the maintenance of the wonderful facilities that we have here. And of course, I'd like to single out Mr. Ajay from the engineering unit, who's really helped us all the time that we've asked. He has always been here, ever ready. Of course, on a lighter note, I'd also like to thank our contractor for timing their work so accurately that the people who attended this function were the first to use this new entrance that we've just created. So it was on time, just in time, but marvelous job, as you can all admit when you actually see the frontage. I'd like to thank the staff from the Offices of Alumni and Corporate Relations, Global Engagement, and also NPTEL, who have also contributed greatly to the growth of IC&SR. Last but not the least, you know what I'm going to say. I have this wonderful 180 industrious, cooperative, specialized resources. And I think along with our one and only permanent employee, that is our DR in charge, we strive to make ICSR a place where people like to come and go back with a smile on their faces. Our staff put in their 100% efforts to serve with a smile despite all the personal difficulties that they've been going through. The average age of our staff is just above 30, so you can imagine we have a very young population here. It is a mobile population also because they look at ICSR as a platform to elevate their careers, and they are very successful once they come out of here and go for other opportunities. They always remember the upbringing at ICSR, and many of them are actually doing their first jobs here. So it's indeed, without their support, none of this is, of course, possible. This event is also not possible without their support. I think many of them are around here, and they've been working very, very hard, not just for this event, of course, for everything else that we do in ICSR, but specifically for this event, there are many, many people. I don't think I can start reading out the names, then your dinner will be delayed. But yeah, I think I would not really read out all of their names, but I would like to thank each and every one of them because they've given it their all. I mean, what we are here, anything good that we do in front of you today, it's because of the collective efforts of 180 plus staff members. I think they are really the backbone. Sorry? I'm also a staff now. Thank you. I'm blessed to be part of such a good staff, and I think together, I think good times are ahead. As all directors have really pointed out, we can grow from strength to strength and really take our office forward to continue to serve IIT Madras. I think that's the ultimate thing that we need to do. We have to continue to serve so that IIT Madras continues to excel technologically. So as I finish up my vote of thanks, I'd like to also tell you that in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so, one of our ICSR staff, who is also a good artist, has actually done up a sketch which he'd like to display. Can we quickly show that sketch? Yeah, they're coming this way. Okay. So usually what we've been asking him to do is while the program is on, he stands on the side and makes it in 15-20 minutes. But this time I thought since we had an interview going on, we'd have it display at the end of the entire program. So Muttavil, please. So he did this in the last 15 minutes just to show the frontage of our building. Good job. Thank you, Muthuir. So in my vote of thanks, I apologize if I've inadvertently missed any name. Of course, I didn't say many names, but anyway, thank you all very much for attending today and blessing us with your presence and supporting us all through. And Jai Hind to all of you. I request you all to join for dinner. We have, of course, the dining hall, which is available, and the annex hall is also available with some chairs and tables for people who would like to sit down and eat. Thank you, Professor Natarajan. Thank you. It was wonderful to have you today, sir. Thank you. Just one announcement. All of our guests who are here today, on your way out, please do collect the calendar and the cup. That's a small gift from IC&SR as you're heading out. Thank you.